Bob, thanks for being here.
This is one of my favorite topics of all that we do. I cannot remember whether or not I told you a story the last time we were together, so I'll tell it again. When I was a kid, I don't think I was a terrible kid, but I certainly got in my fair share of trouble, and like I'm sure a number of you. When I did, I was appropriately disciplined by my parents, and they gradually taught me the discipline of self-control, the discipline of getting along with my sibling, and it was the beginning of the disciplines. And over time, they and others taught me the discipline of values, of knowing what was important in life. Teachers and coaches taught the discipline of study and the discipline of practice. And then you go to school and you get more of that training. And then you join an organization, and you must understand and be aware of and adopt the discipline of values in fitting into an organization. You have to know what their values are, you have to know what your values are, and make sure that they are aligned and compatible. So we have been working for a long time now on the disciplines of effective organizations, whether they be profit or nonprofit, organizations and effective people. So what I want to share with you today is one of those disciplines, the discipline of trust. And I think the defendable premise is that the most important, and that's underlined, the most important factor in individual and organizational success, and the most valuable commodity in the world, literally in the world, is trust. It is the core element of all relationships, whether they be personal or organizational. It is a leadership must. If we as leaders can create and sustain trust, we can do great things and impact the world in very favorable ways. If we can't develop and sustain trust, we will fail. It is a key factor in company financial performance. It's also a key factor in nonprofit performance. It attracts, this is really interesting, the studies show that trust attracts and keeps talent better than pay. If pay is adequate and trust is significant, you got them. Okay. It's a stakeholder glue. It weaves together lots of different people, individuals, teams, customers, owners, external relationships, vendors and regulators and people that we have to cope with. And you're very well familiar with regulators and how they impact your business and how you have to convince them that you know what you're doing and will do it well, right? And yet, we actually have a trust crisis in this country. Half of workers who distrust their senior leaders are thinking about changing jobs. And 20% of them are thinking about changing their jobs within 2 years, and another 20% expect to be gone in 5 years. From a Forbes study, 82% of people do not trust their boss to tell them the truth. Okay? And in this country, right now, we have an enormous, terrible problem with trust across our whole country. We just simply don't trust each other. So today, what I'd like to do with you is talk about defining trust, reviewing how trust influences our lives, our success and interactions with those around us, show how trust is built, show how trust is lost, show how trust is rebuilt, and then there's actually some tools that I can leave with Bruce that if you're interested in doing some self-evaluations with trust, which are always good periodically to do. I do them, we do them as a staff. You might be interested in those, okay? Interesting thing about trust is it just doesn't emerge at big times, right? It's not a treaty ratification of the day you got married or a big contract. It's around us all the time. Issues of trust permeate our days from the day we're born to the day we die. And it's often, the clinical psychologists tell us, is what's below the surface of our consciousness, and it has an enormous impact on outcomes. Think about it this way. Our minds and habits don't develop in a social vacuum. We evolved in social groups. The minds of our ancestors were sculpted by living with others where they depended on each other for survival, and in fact, they needed to solve the dilemmas of trust or they ceased to exist. They were wiped out. Okay? And the human mind, the psychologists dwell on this, and I think appropriately so. We try to maintain the trustworthiness of others. How do we learn that? And we need to weigh the need to be trusted ourselves. How far will we go to be trusted? And what about those people on the other side of the relationship? Okay. Trust is based on perceptions, and that is formed by our behaviors. Nobody really cares what we say. Okay? The fact is they only care how we behave. It's what we do that matters. It's not what we say. So what is trust? It's a little bit complicated. It's an understood reality that every single one of us are vulnerable. Nobody stands alone. Nobody can afford to walk alone. And the need to satisfy our needs and wants is not entirely under our control. There are outside forces and outside organizations and people that influence that significantly. And it's an acknowledgement that selfish and selfless goals exist and they will compete. Both our need to give and our need to take exist simultaneously. And if our needs to take are significantly greater than our needs to give, that will create issues with trust. Okay? It's also about gratification. Everybody wants to have our needs filled right now. Okay? But we have to defer gratification oftentimes or it doesn't happen at all. We need to save money to ultimately be able to buy the house or whatever, the car, whatever, right? We have to delay it. But if immediate gratification is what we need constantly, what will happen is that will affect and destroy trust. We also know that conscious and unconscious desires compete. We think we know what we know. We think we know what we want. But oftentimes it is the subconscious and what's behind us way deep in our heads that influences, and we're not even necessarily totally aware of it. It's also really tough to mirror two people's needs and wants at all levels. You know this in relationships, okay? That's really tough. You got two people, they're individuals. They're selfless and selfish at the same time. And it's complicated to cope and succeed. Trust is absolutely and totally essential in organizational life and in personal life. So research has shown us a couple things that are interesting. They're sort of foundational. Trust is a bet, and bets involve risk. And we have a strong bias as human beings against loss. And what is true is that we experience greater distress sometimes over losing something than actually gaining the very same thing. We're afraid to lose, so we don't even try. Okay? So why do you ever do it? Why do you ever take a chance and trust? Right? The answer is we have no choice. Okay? The potential benefits from trusting others considerably outweigh the potential losses on average. Not always the case, but in most cases. And the ever-increasing complexity and resources that are available to us as human beings and society, they all, every single one of them, depend upon trust and cooperation. What are some of the factors that influence that, make it complex? You've got technological advances. You've got the interconnected social and financial capital. These are both resources. Social capital is real. It matters. And there are limits of economic resources. There's a great book out there, if you ever want to understand this aspect of it in a more deep sense, called Thanks for Being Late. And the metaphor is about somebody at breakfast one morning, and somebody shows up late. And the first thing they say is, "I'm sorry for being late." And the person says, No, this is fabulous, thank you. This is the first time in months I've had a chance to think. Okay? And that's because everything around us is compounding at a rate. Okay? Everything around us, all of these forces are interacting and accelerating each other simultaneously. And if we don't figure out ways to do this together, it's going to eat us and it'll run right over us. Okay? So there's a need to increase and manage those resources, whether they're financial, physical, or social, and all of them can be achieved by working together than working alone. What's fascinating about trust is when you study it and you look at the advantages, it's extraordinary. Just some of the benefits and highlights. High trust countries, interesting enough, when they measure the level of trust in citizenry around the world, high trust countries are richer than low trust countries. Okay? High trust companies do better financially than low trust companies at the bottom line. So it is about financial performance. It's about organizational performance, and nonprofits that measure themselves with metrics of performance find out exactly the same thing. Okay? High trust companies have half the turnover of low trust companies, and that's true in nonprofits as well. And high trust companies' efficiency and productivity, well, interesting, those go up and costs go down. And the biggest reason for that is our people stay. They stick with it. Okay? And people in high trust companies, this is interesting, they earn more money. When you look at high trust companies, top quartile, and low trust companies, bottom quartile, high trust companies pay on average almost 18% more than low trust companies because they can afford to, because their financial performance is better than those others. Okay? There are many further specific benefits. I'm going to get into those a little bit more later because there are a number of them that really get personal. Okay? So how do we do this? This whole process of creating and sustaining trust. And what matters for trust to emerge is just that individuals and organizations have to meet the reasonable expectations of others, thereby freeing their partners from having to constantly check. Okay? If you're constantly worried about the other relationship, okay, trust will fade and disappear. Okay? And people navigate issues. They think about what they're going to do in a relationship, oftentimes through the reputation of others and peer experience, right? And so if we can create a reputation that says we are trustworthy, you can trust us, that propagates across an organization. And ultimately organizations figure out, okay, who can be trusted and who can't be trusted, because they're smart. Okay? What are the behaviors that, that people have who are trustable? They live by the rule of integrity in all things. They hold secrets as absolutely sacred. Their behavior is a study of ethics in action. They do the right thing. They're loyal. Even when we make it really difficult, okay, on them, they stick by us. They balance self-interest. We all have self-interest, and we should, or we can't make it in the world. But they balance that with service to others. They're really good at what they do, okay? But they have a sense of humility, and they're grateful for their success. You know, they don't think it happened all by themselves. You know, other people were involved, other people helped, other people coached them, okay? They learned at the feet of other people. They're grateful. They're generous with their time to help others, and they give credit and recognition when due. They're delighted to recognize other people, and they love to celebrate other people's success. They can't have more fun than to do that. They also do what they commit to, and they honor all promises. They tell the truth as they see it, okay? And they constantly stay open and honest, and they keep their word. No matter what, they keep their word. If I tell you I will do this, you can count on it, you can go to the bank. They're transparent. They share themselves, weaknesses and all. None of us are perfect. We all need each other. Nobody walks alone. And the only secrets they keep are those that are truly in the best interest of the person or the organization. Sometimes you have to keep a secret, because if you don't, it's going to hurt somebody, right? They're capable of expressing their feelings and being vulnerable, and their hearts are as visible as their brains, and their vulnerability, and that vulnerability creates rapport, and rapport, we know, builds trust. The more rapport we have, the more trust there is. And they have the best interests of others at heart. They work at staying attuned to others. They have empathy. They can relate to other human beings. And reciprocity works. It's absolutely true. Trust is earned by our behavior towards others and their behavior in return, and it gets stronger when it's reinforced. The loop gets stronger. The foundation gets higher. Okay? Now, let me go back to some of the specific benefits of this. Okay? They're really, really significant. Trust increases personal connections, and it increases synergy. Bonded people move faster, and they're more effective. When we're bonded, when we're hooked together, we move faster, and we're more effective. Our personal freedom increases with trust. Absolutely true. In organizational life, the more we're trusted, okay, we have this personal freedom because people know they can believe what we say and believe what we do, right? Trusted people, this is unbelievably important. If people are trusted, at work, they're highly likely to be trusted at home, which makes for better marriages, partnerships, and relationships with children. Okay? What more of a sacred place could we have to create and sustain trust than at home? Trusted people rise higher, faster in organizations. Others are willing to trust it. They're willing to take risks. Okay? Risk is all around us. Okay? But when we trust someone, we're much more likely to take that risk if they say it's okay. Trust me, it's okay. Our influence with trust increases, and that reputation propagates across the organization. If we are trusted in our units and our close-in relationships, okay, that spreads and people trust us elsewhere. And when we meet or exceed others' expectations, right, it allows us to have reciprocal expectations of them, right? It's reasonable for me to expect that you'll meet my needs as well, right? People feel safe and comfortable with trusted people. Feel safe. Safety is one of the greatest factors in human relationships. I am safe with you. When trusted, we're more inviting to others. Trust increases our ability to negotiate positive outcomes. We're better negotiators, okay, when we're trusted, because people know that we're in it for the right reasons. Compromise and the reduction of tension occur when people are trusted. We can alter somebody else's position because they at least trust we're trying to do the right thing, okay? They're at least trying to do the right thing. And when trusted, you don't have to hide your mistakes. In fact, we can be open about them and thus use them both for personal growth opportunities and examples for others. Okay? One of the great learning examples for organizations is when people are really open about their mistakes. In one of our outfits, we used to have quarterly town hall meetings, okay? And we rotated this responsibility. Every senior officer had to take a turn at describing what they screwed up, what they learned, what they did about it, and what they were going to do in the future to make that a learning platform, okay? And it was a wonderful, wonderful metaphor for the organization, because if we could stand up and say, this is what we did, this was the cost of it, this is what we learned, we begin to permeate. It's okay for everybody to do that, because we all screw up. We all make mistakes. There isn't a human being that doesn't make regular and sometimes very regular mistakes, okay? Trust holds relationships. When times are tough in organizational life or in families, trust is what's the glue that holds us together. And trust builds openness and candor that feeds good decision making, and even our intuition is more trusted, right? We can say to somebody, I can't prove that to you. I cannot prove that in fact to you, but my every ounce of energy in my body, every instinct tells me that this is what we got to do, right? And they'll go, okay, cool, because we trust you, okay? So what I'm basically saying that you already know, trust is worth the effort. It really is, because the payoffs are so significant. Problem is that there's a dark side to trust. And we need to understand it, because it again is filled with human behavior. Go ahead and break promises, okay? One of the biggest ways to lose trust. Be inconsistent, either in your actions, in communication, or both, and that creates confusion. And it makes people wary, okay? It leads them to ask themselves, why and how is this person different than before? And that suspicion makes people cautious, okay? Become known as a taker versus a giver. Look out for and promote only yourself and your friends, okay? Tight circles. Lie. One of the biggest ways to instantly lose trust is to not tell the truth, tell only part of the truth, or try and reframe the truth to suit your own ends, okay? Recreate the facts so it tells your story, right? Use information as a weapon, okay? Don't tell the whole story. Withhold information so that other people make mistakes. You know if they don't have this information, they're going to screw up and they're going to look bad, and you let it happen, okay? Or communicate your version of the truth, okay, so that makes you look good. Play the game in the shadows. This is one of the most destructive behaviors in organizations, is people go behind others' backs to influence outcomes, or they create what we call unholy alliances. Let's round up a group of people and we will conspire to make this come out the way we want it to come out, rather than it should, okay, so it benefits us. Being unreliable. Don't do the job as promised. You don't have valid excuses. You have no good reason, but you do it. Blame others for your mistakes, or don't admit them at all, or let the organization find them when you're gone, right? And this happens in all kinds of organizations where we peel the onion after somebody's left, right? And we go, oh my God, look at what they left us, right? There's this pile of stuff that now we got to fix, okay? Self-promotion, fabricate, enlarge the success. It was great, I'm wonderful. Never show any humility or weakness. I'm all great all the time, right? Everything's just fine, everything's good. Nope, perfect, right? Show a lack of integrity or ethics. This is deadly. This is absolutely deadly in organization. Don't do the right thing. Bend the rules, okay? People will spot that in a hurry, okay? And then they start to watch you really, really closely, okay? Don't recognize or celebrate other successes, and if you can, minimize them. Wasn't that good? Interesting project. I think it could have been a lot better, frankly. I think they missed this. I think they missed that. Right. Whatever you do, put a cloud on it. Or play people against each other, okay? And you take, one person and you tell them one thing, you tell another person another thing, and you deliberately set them at battle, okay? Why? Because you think it benefits you, okay? And because we're all human, okay, this is all of us, okay? We all make trust mistakes. We all do. There ain't anybody in this room that hasn't made trust mistakes, okay? I made some buttes, really buttes. I'll tell you one. Lori and I were living elsewhere. We're living in Winnetka, and we had some very good friends that had some financial problems. They needed some money, right? Really good friends. We had the money. I gave it to them, right? Nice gesture. Problem is, I didn't tell Lori first, okay? When she found out, she went ripping into me, and her point was, those are not your assets. Those are our assets, And if I can't trust you with our assets, where else can I not trust you? Okay? That was a wake-up call. Okay? We all do stuff like that. Okay? We're human beings. We screw up. Okay? So what happens? Well, first of all, we got to understand something. Once trust is lost, it's very difficult to regain. There are times when it is impossible. There are times when people cross a line and you're just not going to run that risk anymore. But it is possible in most cases to regain trust. It may take time and it will take energy, but it's possible. So what do? For God's sake, say you're sorry and mean it. I am truly sorry for what I did. Admit what you've done, and what's really important is the second half of that. Please forgive me. It may take a while, but I'm asking that you please forgive me. Promise to remedy the situation. I will fix this. And I hold myself accountable for that fix, and I want you to hold me accountable for that fix. Okay? Deliver on every single action promised. You miss one of them, you're back to where you were all the way at the beginning. It's actually worse. Okay? So every single action that you promise, you do, and you check it off, and you make sure they understand that you met it. And then, for God's sake, think about every decision or action going forward from the perspective of, will this create or diminish trust? Okay? Every decision. Go to work and think about every decision. Will this create and sustain trust, or it won't? Go home and ask yourself, will this action that I'm taking, this thing that I'm saying, whatever, is that going to create or diminish trust? Okay? The higher the trust level, the more everything works. The lower the trust level, the more everything is challenged. Okay? So, a couple thoughts for you, and then we'll do some Q&As if you like. Without communication, there is no relationship. Without respect, there is no love. And without trust, there's just absolutely no reason to continue. Okay? To be trusted is a greater accomplishment than being loved. Okay? You can love somebody but not trust them. But when you really trust somebody, it's hard not to at least like them, right? And frankly, you got to basically tell this to people in one way or another. I do not trust easily because that takes a leap of faith, right? So when I tell you I trust you, please don't make me regret it, okay? And remember a couple of things. It's pretty simple, really. Trust equals us. No trust, no us. No us, no present, and no future. Us is absolutely everything. Us as families, us as married people, us as people in other relationships, other people at work. Us is absolutely everything. The more us, the more we are happy, the more we are successful, the more we have these wonderful relationships, okay? So let's just figure out ways to build trust and sustain trust, and we'll all be so much better off, right? Okay. That's a story, okay? It's backed up clinically. It's true, I think. Questions, challenges?
You talked about high trust and low trust. How do you figure out whether you're a high trust or low trust organization?
Well, behaviors. When we work with an organization, one of the things we will tell them up front is, if you show us your structures and you allow us access to chat with some of your people, we will tell you what your values are and we'll tell you what your behaviors are. And they go, how could you possibly do that, right? Show me your organizational structure, show me your reward structure, show me your communication structure, show me how you handle, growing people or not growing people, show me how you absorb people in your organization. Okay, let me talk to a few of them. I'll tell you exactly. what the level of trust is in your organization, right? And what's interesting is that people will stick around sometimes in low trust companies because either don't have an option or they're getting paid enough, right? But they're not taking any risk, right? And being very careful about who they relate to. And the organization as a whole isn't nearly as successful as it would be because we got to take risk. We have to take risk to grow our organization, grow our self-confidence, our skill set. We have to. So yeah, you can tell if we get access, to the right people, and then there's a whole series of organizations. Organizations make or break relationships based on collective trust. This is a whole different presentation, but the greatest factor in dysfunctional teams is a lack of trust. It's the greatest factor, by far. And there are lots of behaviors that build organization trust, right? I just run through a few of them. Compelling strategies for organizational success and people communicating that to every level, regular reporting on progress and strategic shifts to stay on target, communication, a commitment to create and sustain a culture of individual excellence and mutual accountability. We will hold ourselves accountable, okay? Leaders manage direction, work, and results in supporting talent growth over supervision. It's not about I am the boss. It's I'm going to help you succeed, okay? Expectations are high but realistic, and they are particularly high for leaders, very high. Reinforced values are rigidly adhered to, okay? They have values that are clear. They are rigidly adhered to. Violate those values, you are not going to be around here, okay? Integrity in all things. Let people know you will do the right thing every day for the rest of your life in this organization, or you will not be here. Okay? Investment in employee growth and well-being is significant. They have shared goals. Those receive special emphasis. Individual performance is expected as a contribution to the whole. In other words, we are the sum of our parts, okay? We are the sum of our expectations and our results. Responsible risk-taking is expected as necessary, and mistakes are learning opportunities. And then there's a whole bunch of other things like relentless improvement. It is part of most really strong cultures. We had that sign posted in the main entrance to our building, okay? Today's the best we've ever been and the worst we will ever be, okay? Relentless, constant improvement. That's the only way you really survive anymore. Everybody's a partner and a stakeholder. They regularly and masterfully celebrate individual and stakeholder success. They're masters of listening, okay? They listen really closely. Share information regularly and broadly, support individual and team growth with formal development and group learning, and they say thank you all the time. Now, this is interesting. They believe that any turnover is essentially a failure. And we used to preach this. We didn't hire the right person, we didn't train the right person, we didn't supervise them, we didn't help them grow, okay? If we didn't hire them on the front end, we didn't hire the right person, that's our fault. It's not their fault, it's our fault. And then we have to live with the consequences. And that's a hard one to bite off because you got to say, if they failed, we'd like to blame them. Yeah, sorry about that. Look at yourself first. And then if you align your structures and your processes and so on, so that when people do fail, it really is a failure. Something really bad happened, okay? Okay, they lied to us, or, something happened to them along the way and they just can no longer perform, okay? It's a tragedy, okay? They welcome newcomers with enthusiasm. They call them seed capital, right? These are dues to the future. These are the people we have to hire now so they're ready when we need them, okay? And interesting, leaders believe they don't have power. They hold power in trust for those they lead, okay? So lots of things for every organization to think about, So, questions? Challenges? You had too much lunch.
So you do go to an organization
Yeah.
and Glenn says, oh, go see this guy or this guy and
Yeah.
this guy, talk to them. You think they're giving 100% truth all the time?
No.
How do you weigh that?
Sometimes they do. It depends on what we say and how we handle those conversations. There are some people that are so far into distrust, they're not going to tell you. But you can tell that they won't tell you. That tells you a lot,
Yeah.
right? That tells you a lot. What we try and do is basically say to somebody, I have been hired by your company to try and help it succeed. And one of the ways in which it can only succeed is if it builds and sustains trust with you and everybody like you. They've asked us to, in confidence, ask people how that's going. I can't tell you to tell me the truth. I can ask you to tell me the truth. I can tell you that it will be held in absolute total confidence. No tape recorders, no notes. Okay? And so I'm really asking that you help me help you and help this organization. All I can do is ask. What do you like best about this organization? What do you like least about this organization? How would you measure trust, okay, between you and the people you work with? And how would you measure trust between you and your boss? Just you and me, okay? All I can do is ask. You do that sincerely enough, okay, and you will know because their answers will tell you, okay? If they won't tell you what their relationship is with their boss, you got a pretty good idea what it is, okay? We know. I mean, we'll know. And we'll be able to go back to management and say, you have things to work on. There's some really wonderful things about your relationships. There are places where your trust is really quite good. There are other places that are really important where it's not. And you have a decision to make, okay? Do you want to go through a process of changing, okay, structures and behaviors, particularly with leadership, that will create and sustain more trust? If you want to do that, we can help you. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, okay? You're stuck where you are then. Don't complain about your numbers. Don't complain about your turnover. Don't complain about your conflicts. Don't complain about your arguments. Don't complain about any of that, okay? Because you earned it. And we don't want to work with people who are not interested in changing, right? Why do you want to do that? You know, it's just painful, just awful. And there are times when we've had to fire clients. You know, where we start down a project like this, and you know, we'll get far enough into it, and we say to management, "Here are our recommendations," and they argue with us. Okay, and we know what we're getting, right? We know the resistance level. We know, you know, and all you can say is, "Hear you loud and clear. This is not the place for us to be working together. Thanks for your time. We're out of here." That rarely happens, yeah, to tell you the truth, because most of the time when we get called in, people are saying, we got an issue. You know, help us with the issue. Yeah, so.
So trust exists between you and me. It's something that is built. It's something that is formed and has to be nurtured. Let's say that you, for whatever reason, don't trust me.
Right.
And it may have something to do with me, but it might not.
Right.
It could be based on something else. But I guess I can work as hard as I can. I guess there are certain things within my control, and you list a lot of those that I can do to try to earn your trust.
Right.
But unless you make that decision and take that risk,
Right.
Then it's not going to happen. I guess there are limits to what you're talking about.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there are some situations where, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to build a healthy sense of trust or even restore one.
That's absolutely true. Sometimes it's just too bad. And organizations, we talk a lot about reserves in organizations. And I think the last time we were talking about resilience, and we all have two kinds of reserves. One is the normal human reserve. And that means that we can be under stress and things can be difficult for periods of time. We have to work extra hours and all the rest of that. But as long as we get a break and we get some rest, right, we restore that reserve. Underneath that reserve, there's another reserve called the terminal reserve. It's there. We can get it if we need to. But after we've gone through all of the normal reserve, okay, and now it's just working too hard or it's too awful, the relationships are too bad, we start to eat into that terminal reserve. And for every hour we take from the terminal reserve, it is never restored, ever. And that's why people burn out. That's why organizations burn out. And that's why they just can't respond. They just don't have any more energy. They can't do it. Nobody's going to take any risk. Everybody's too tired. It won't work. Okay. Well, that happens in trust relationships too. I think, all you can do, Bruce, is to try. And I think one of the best ways, I've had to have some conversations with people that said, you and I have an issue. It's serious. I am very worried about it. I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about me. I'm concerned about what it's doing to our organization that you and I both own. And I think what's happened is I've done something that makes you not trust me. And I don't know what that is. But I'm terrified by it. And I want to resolve it. And I promise you that if you are candid and open with me and let me know what I've done, okay, I'll work on that. And all I can do is ask that you be open and share with me. I promise you there will be no repercussions from that, okay? Help me out, right? Now, if it's not too bad, they will. Well, you did this, you did that. Okay, you don't do this, you don't do that. Wow, I did not know. Or maybe I did, and I ignored it, okay? I hear you. Let me think about that. I will come back to you with what I will do about that and the actions that I will hold myself accountable for. And hopefully that will help you and I bridge what we've been struggling with. All you can do, right? And my experience is that people can't wait, usually, to tell you. You idiot. You did this, you did that, you said this, you promoted that person, you did, and it's like drinking from a fire hose sometimes, right? Because boy, did you screw up, right? And you may have screwed up multiple things, right? Hey, all you can do, you go back to the screen, right? I'm sorry, okay? I own it. I'll deal with it. Please forgive me. Most people want to forgive us, okay? It's built into us, I think, and we want to heal the relationship because it's an important relationship. If I don't heal this relationship, that person's going to leave my organization. Or I'm going to fire them, and they're going to lose their job, right? What a tragedy that is, right? So there are consequences, to this stuff, and in the end, it is all about, collective trust. I've been part of organizations that were very high trust, wonderful. We kicked the bejesus out of the competition. I've been part of organizations that struggled with trust, okay? Trouble. So, yeah, it's one of the most, say it another way, that first slide said the most valuable currency, right, in the world. I believe that's true. If we can create and sustain that with our relationships, we can go anywhere, we can do anything, right? If we can't, we're in trouble. Anything else for the good of the order this afternoon?
Well, we really appreciate
Okay.
you being with us. And
My pleasure.
spending this time with us. Thank
Great.
you very much.